The planet Zilla was unlike any other in its part of the galaxy. From a distance, it appeared as a glowing gem, with swirling oceans that reflected the light of its twin suns and forests that shimmered with colors no human eye could imagine. The aliens who called Zilla home were as unique as their world. They were tall, elegant beings with smooth, iridescent skin that changed shades depending on their emotions. Their eyes were large and luminous, allowing them to see not only in daylight but also deep into the darkness of their forests, where mysteries thrived. Their society had existed for thousands of years, quietly advancing and growing, untouched by the wars and chaos that had scarred so many other civilizations in the galaxy. The aliens had a culture, deeply rooted in knowledge and exploration. Every citizen, from a young hatchling to the elders, spent their lives learning, discovering, and creating. They built massive libraries carved into crystal towers, where thoughts and ideas were stored not just in books, but in energy matrices that could project entire histories as holographic experiences. Children learned not just from teachers but from living stories, where they could feel what their ancestors felt, see what they saw, and experience the decisions they had made. It was a world where knowledge was power, but wisdom was the true treasure. Zilla's cities were marvels of design and harmony with nature. Towers made of transparent materials spiraled toward the sky, connected by floating walkways that seemed to defy gravity. Gardens grew on every level, with plants that glowed softly at night, lighting the paths for those who walked among them. The oceans were home to creatures both terrifying and beautiful, yet the aliens had found ways to coexist with them, understanding their rhythms and patterns. The forests were alive in more ways than one. Trees communicated with each other through subtle pulses of energy, and the aliens had learned to read these signals, making the forest their allies and companions. Life on Zilla was a delicate balance, and its people cherished every aspect of it. Despite all of this beauty and advancement, the aliens lived cautiously. They knew the universe was vast, and beyond their peaceful world lay countless dangers. History had taught them that not all intelligent beings were friendly. In some systems, entire civilizations had been wiped out by ruthless conquerors or by natural predators that fed on life itself. The elders of Zilla told stories of distant worlds where greed and violence had destroyed the most magnificent societies. These lessons were ingrained in every citizen from a young age. Curiosity and exploration were encouraged, but so were vigilance and caution. They had developed advanced sensors, shields, and defensive technologies, not because they expected war, but because they had learned that survival required preparation. Their society valued peace above all else. Conflicts, when they occurred, were solved through dialogue, reasoning, and mutual understanding. Wars were almost non-existent on Zilla, not because they were weak, but because their culture had evolved beyond the need for violence. They believed that knowledge and empathy was stronger than armies and weapons. Yet, even in their advanced society, there was an unspoken understanding that this peace could be fragile. The galaxy was unpredictable, and the universe often tested those who lived without fear or aggression. The aliens' isolation, however, was not a result of fear alone. They had chosen to limit contact with other species because most outsiders were either too primitive to understand them or too dangerous to trust. Ships from other systems rarely visited Zilla, and when they did, the aliens observed them carefully, learning from their behavior without revealing too much of themselves. Trade was minimal and tightly controlled. Diplomacy was approached with extreme caution. The aliens preferred to focus on their own development, advancing their technology and culture in ways that did not rely on others. Yet, this isolation also meant that they had little awareness of threats lurking in the shadows, far beyond the range of their senses and patrols. Life on Zilla was harmonious, but it was also routine. Every day followed a rhythm that had been perfected over centuries. Citizens woke with the twin suns, attended their studies or work, and participated in community activities that reinforced their values of knowledge, cooperation, and creativity. They engaged in art, music, and scientific exploration. And festivals celebrated the cycles of the planet, the alignment of the suns, and the mysteries of the universe. Their lives were full, rich, and meaningful, yet beneath the surface, there was an underlying vigilance, a quiet awareness that their paradise could one day be threatened in this setting of peace and careful preparation. Life continued peacefully, until subtle signs of danger began to appear. It started with small anomalies in their monitoring systems and usual energy readings, faint signals that did not match any known sources, and strange movements detected in the outer atmosphere. At first, these were dismissed as natural phenomena or minor technical glitches, but as time went on, the anomalies became more frequent and harder to explain. A sense of unease began to spread among the elders and scientists. They convened in their crystal towers, analyzing the data, running simulations, and trying to determine whether these disturbances were natural or intentional. The aliens had faced challenges before, but never anything like this. Their society was advanced, but it had never prepared them for an intelligent external threat approaching their world. Their sensors picked up faint, irregular signals moving closer to Zilla. The energy readings suggested something large, powerful, and capable of technological mastery beyond anything they had encountered. The aliens debated their response, Some advocated for strengthening their shields and preparing defensive measures, while others argued for attempts at communication, hoping that understanding the intentions of these unknown visitors might prevent conflict. Even as they debated, the citizens of Zilla carried on with their daily lives. Children played in the luminous forests, oblivious to the growing tension. Scientists conducted experiments in floating laboratories. Artists performed in the crystal amphitheaters, and citizens meditated in the gardens that glowed under the twin suns. Yet, a shadow had begun to fall over their perfect world. The elders could feel it, a sense that their careful isolation might not be enough. They realized that the universe was unpredictable, and that even a civilization as advanced and wise as theirs could face dangers beyond comprehension. This period of quiet uncertainty set the stage for the trials to come. The aliens were about to face a reality they had never imagined, a threat so dangerous and relentless that it could destroy their world. Yet, even in this moment of potential fear, they remained calm, relying on the values that had guided them for centuries: knowledge, preparation, and respect for the balance of life. The stage was set for a story of survival, courage, and the intervention of forces even they had never anticipated. By the time the first signs of the approaching danger became undeniable, the aliens were ready in some ways and unprepared in others. They had the knowledge, the intelligence, and the foresight to understand the threat, but they had never faced a predator that might not respond to reason or diplomacy. The peaceful civilization of Zilla was about to enter a chapter of their history that would test everything they had built, everything they believed in, and everything they had thought they knew about the galaxy. Even in this moment of uncertainty, there was beauty in Zilla. The glowing forests, the shimmering oceans, and the crystal towers reminded them of what they were fighting to protect. It was a reminder that their lives, their culture, and their way of existence were worth defending not through violence or conquest, but through wisdom, strategy, and, perhaps, the help of unexpected allies who would arrive when hope seemed dim. The aliens of Zilla, though peaceful and cautious, were about to discover that the universe held both danger and protection in ways they could never have imagined. And so, the story of Zilla begins not with fear, but with the calm, intelligent preparation of a civilization that has learned that even in paradise, vigilance is necessary. The peaceful life on Zilla began to show cracks as subtle signs of a threat started to appear, and the aliens quickly realized that their paradise was not as safe as they had believed. At first, the anomalies seemed minor and easily dismissible. Energy fluctuations in their outer atmosphere were small, irregular, and hard to pinpoint. Satellites that circled the planet occasionally went offline for a few minutes, then returned to function normally. At first, the scientists believed it was a technical glitch, perhaps a natural interference in Zilla's electromagnetic field. Yet, as days passed, the anomalies became more frequent and unmistakable. The irregular energy readings intensified, moving closer to the planet in ways that suggested intelligence behind them. The elders convened urgent meetings in their crystal towers, summoning the most experienced scientists, strategists, and diplomats. Holographic projections displayed patterns in the energy readings that were impossible to ignore. They were not random. Someone or something was approaching Zilla, and the way these signals moved indicated careful calculation rather than natural occurrence. The initial confusion gave way to concern, and concern slowly evolved into fear. While the aliens were technologically advanced, their society had always prioritized knowledge and harmony over conflict. They had prepared for natural disasters, space anomalies, and even the rare encounters with other intelligent species, but nothing in their long history had prepared them for a predator that came with intent and precision. Debates erupted among the council. Some argued that they should prepare defensive measures immediately. Shields were reinforced, patrol drones were deployed to monitor the outer atmosphere, and warning signals were sent into space, testing for any response. These council members believed that Zilla needed to be ready for a confrontation, even if the aliens hoped it could be avoided. They emphasized the need for readiness, citing history as proof that hesitation could be fatal. The other faction, however, urged caution, advocating that any aggressive action could provoke an attack. They proposed attempts at communication first, hoping that dialogue might avert disaster. They believed that reason and diplomacy could prevent unnecessary conflict. This disagreement illustrated a tension at the heart of Zilla's society, the balance between preparation and principle, between fear and hope. Meanwhile, the citizens of Zilla carried on with their daily routines, largely unaware of the growing tension. Children played under the luminescent trees, their laughter echoing through the bioluminescent forests. Artists painted and sculpted, inspired by the glowing beauty of their world. Scientists continued their experiments, analyzing the strange anomalies while also engaging in theoretical research that had little immediate application. The contrast between the calmness of life and the growing danger made the unfolding events even more dramatic. The planet itself seemed to reflect this duality. Calm oceans and glowing forests belied the turmoil in the skies above. As the anomalies increased, the aliens began to notice strange movements in orbit. Tiny scout ships, almost invisible against the dark backdrop of space, moved with an intelligence that was impossible to ignore. The scouts appeared to be studying Zilla, tracking their cities, their energy patterns, and their defensive measures. Unlike any species the aliens had previously encountered, these visitors displayed a patience and precision that suggested experience in conquest. The aliens monitored these intrusions closely, analyzing every movement, every signal. Each piece of data added to a picture that was both alarming and incomprehensible. This was not exploration. It was not casual curiosity. It was strategy, a prelude to attack. Panic, although subdued, began to spread among some parts of the population. Not everyone understood the full implications of the threat, but instinctive fear emerged. Even a civilization as calm and disciplined as Zilla could not entirely suppress anxiety when faced with an unknown predator. Citizens questioned the council's debates, wondering if they were taking too long to act or if they were underestimating the danger. Schools held special sessions to educate children on basic emergency procedures. Communities reinforced protective shelters, and the entire society prepared, albeit cautiously, for the possibility of conflict. The elders worked tirelessly to find a solution. They tapped into every resource, from ancient knowledge stored in their crystal libraries to advanced simulations run in floating laboratories. Their analysis revealed a troubling pattern. The approaching force, which they soon identified as the Death, had a methodical and strategic approach that could overwhelm even Zilla's defenses if unprepared. These were not mindless attackers. They were a predator species with experience in hunting civilizations for extinction or subjugation. The reality settled over the council like a heavy weight. Zilla's peaceful existence was under threat, and they could not afford mistakes. Attempts at communication began. The aliens broadcast signals in every format they could conceive: energy pulses, coded messages, and even cultural data packages meant to demonstrate their intelligence and peaceful intentions. For hours, days, and then weeks, they awaited a response. Nothing came. Silence from the approaching Deathworlders only confirmed the suspicion that diplomacy would be futile. The predators were not interested in conversation. Their intent was clear: Zilla was a target, and time was running out. Faced with this knowledge, the council had to make difficult decisions. Evacuation plans were considered but dismissed as impractical. Zilla's population numbered in the billions, and moving them without advanced interstellar transport could take years, a luxury they did not have. Some proposed using Zilla's advanced technology to construct defensive weapons, but even these devices had never been tested in full-scale warfare. The aliens faced a terrifying paradox. They were intellectually superior to most species, yet they had no experience in direct combat with a predator that had likely destroyed countless civilizations before them. The threat brought out both fear and courage. Scientists worked day and night, creating simulations to anticipate the Deathworlders' moves. Strategists drew battle plans, despite knowing the odds were against them. Engineers adapted existing technology to function as emergency defenses, modifying energy shields and drones to respond more effectively to aggressive attacks. The entire planet mobilized, yet the aliens were aware that their efforts might not be enough. They faced the terrifying truth: their peaceful world, built over millennia, could be destroyed before their eyes. Amid this chaos, the aliens also reflected on their culture. Their philosophy had always been to solve conflicts through reason, yet here was a situation where reason might not prevail. This realization challenged their most fundamental beliefs. The balance between knowledge and survival had never been so delicate. The elders, however, reminded themselves and their citizens that while they could not predict every outcome, their strength lay in intelligence, adaptability, and unity. These values would guide them through the rising storm. As the Deathworlders drew closer, Zilla's skies began to change. Faint shadows appeared in orbit, growing larger each day. The once serene atmosphere became charged with tension. Satellites captured images of ships that were both alien and intimidating, their sleek, dark hulls designed for speed and destruction. Every simulation confirmed the worst fears. If the Deathworlders decided to attack, Zilla's defenses alone might not withstand the assault. The aliens now faced a race against time to prepare, adapt, and survive before the predators struck. Through it all, the citizens of Zilla remained remarkably resilient. Their society was tested not only by the external threat but by internal stress, debates, and fear. Yet, they continued their work, their education, their art, and their culture. There was a quiet heroism in this persistence, a reflection of the alien values that had carried their civilization through centuries. Even in the shadow of annihilation, they demonstrated intelligence, foresight, and discipline, qualities that would ultimately define their survival. The stage was now fully set for the crisis that would follow. Zilla's alien civilization, so advanced yet peaceful, had been forced into a situation that tested every aspect of their society. They had recognized the threat, attempted diplomacy, prepared defenses, and mobilized their population. But despite all their efforts, one fact remained undeniable. The Deathworlders were coming, and Zilla would soon face a trial unlike anything they had encountered in their long history. The once peaceful skies of their paradise now carried the weight of imminent danger, and the aliens stood ready, knowing that their survival depended on intelligence, courage, and perhaps forces beyond their control. The tension that had been quietly building over weeks finally erupted into chaos. The Deathworlders had arrived, their dark, sleek warships looming over Zilla like shadows of doom. The first sign of their presence was subtle, a ripple through the energy field surrounding the planet, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. But the aliens, vigilant and alert, detected the shift immediately. The sensors blared with activity as hundreds of unidentified objects moved with purpose toward Zilla's atmosphere. The calm, luminescent skies that had once reflected beauty now seemed menacing, filled with dark forms that blocked the light of the twin suns. Citizens of Zilla paused in wonder and fear, sensing the danger that had finally become undeniable. The aliens' first reaction was defensive. Energy shields that had never been fully tested in a real attack were activated. Cities hummed with power as defensive grids came online, and automated drones took to the skies, prepared to intercept any incoming threats. The Deathworlders, however, moved with terrifying efficiency. They deployed fast-moving strike vessels that darted through the atmosphere, evading the alien drones with astonishing agility. The shields of Zilla flickered under the concentrated energy blasts of these invaders, showing weaknesses that the aliens had never anticipated. Panic began to ripple through the population, though the council worked tirelessly to maintain order. The citizens had been warned and prepared, but nothing could fully prepare them for the sight of their world under assault. The battle was unlike anything the aliens had imagined. The Deathworlder ships did not simply attack. They calculated, strategized, and adapted. Every attempt the aliens made to repel them was countered with frightening precision. The elegant towers and crystal structures of Zilla vibrated as energy blasts struck near major cities. The glowing forests, once serene and inviting, now became battle zones as protective energy barriers shimmered under fire. The oceans roared as tidal defenses were activated, creating barriers to prevent enemy landing forces from breaching the shores. For the first time in their history, Zilla was experiencing the horrors of a true war, and the aliens realized that their peaceful philosophy offered little preparation for such brutality. Amid the chaos, the council struggled to respond. Some members advocated for bold, aggressive tactics, urging the aliens to strike the Deathworlders' ships directly with experimental weapons, even if the outcome was uncertain. Others counseled caution, warning that hasty action could lead to catastrophic failure and accelerate the destruction of Zilla's cities. These debates were not merely theoretical. Each decision could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Every choice was weighed against the clock. As the Deathworlders continued their relentless assault, targeting critical infrastructure, energy grids, and strategic locations with terrifying accuracy. As the battle escalated, Zilla's citizens displayed remarkable resilience. Scientists and engineers worked frantically, rerouting power to strengthen shields, repair damaged drones, and stabilize collapsing energy fields. Volunteers and emergency teams guided citizens to secure shelters, maintaining order amid panic. Children were moved to protected areas, and artists and scholars assisted by preserving critical cultural artifacts, ensuring that even in the face of potential destruction, Zilla's knowledge and beauty would not be lost. The alien society, though unprepared for actual warfare, relied on discipline, intelligence, and unity to survive the initial onslaught. Yet, despite their efforts, the aliens realized that they were facing a force far beyond their ability to repel alone. The Deathworlders were relentless, moving with a coordinated precision that suggested not only advanced technology but also an understanding of the alien strategies. Every maneuver, every defensive measure was anticipated and countered. Even their most sophisticated shields were breached in places, forcing evacuations and rapid repair efforts. Citizens watched in horror as familiar landmarks were damaged or destroyed. The shimmering crystal towers cracked, and sections of forests were scorched by energy blasts. The reality of their vulnerability settled over Zilla like a heavy shadow, and the sense of impending doom became palpable. It was in this moment of near despair that a new development occurred, something the aliens had not anticipated. A signal appeared on their communication networks, faint at first, almost lost amid the chaos of the battle. It was an unknown presence, not aligned with the Deathworlders, sending energy pulses that disrupted enemy formations. These pulses were precise, targeting the invaders' ships and disabling some of their key systems. The aliens were astonished. For the first time, they realized that they were not entirely alone in this conflict. Whoever this new presence was, it had the power and knowledge to challenge the Deathworlders in ways Zilla could not. As the new force engaged, the battle intensified. The Deathworlders, confident in their superiority, found themselves countered by a strategy they could not anticipate. Ships that had seemed invincible were suddenly vulnerable, their movements disrupted, their energy weapons overloaded. The aliens watched in awe as their mysterious allies engaged the attackers with a combination of brute force and unmatched tactical skill. The skies above Zilla became a theater of extraordinary conflict, where two formidable forces clashed with staggering intensity, their energy signatures lighting up the darkened atmosphere. Amid the combat, the aliens realized that survival depended not on their own power but on coordination with this unexpected ally. They quickly adapted their strategies, providing support where possible and taking advantage of the temporary reprieve to reinforce shields, evacuate vulnerable populations, and repair critical systems. It was a chaotic collaboration, with no time for formal communication, yet an unspoken understanding emerged. The aliens had long relied on intelligence and adaptation, and now these qualities allowed them to act in concert with a force whose motives they only partially understood. The Death, for the first time, encountered resistance that challenged their expectations. Their coordinated strikes faltered under the pressure of a new, unpredictable opponent. Ships were damaged or destroyed, retreating under fire, while the alien defenders scrambled to hold their ground. The battle reached its critical moment when a massive strike vessel, the size of a small moon, attempted to breach Zilla's primary energy hub. This hub controlled the planet's shields, and if destroyed, would leave the entire civilization exposed. Citizens and council members alike watched, holding their breath as the fate of Zilla hung in the balance. In a remarkable display of timing and precision, the mysterious allies intercepted the massive vessel, striking at its weak points with devastating effect. The alien defenders coordinated with these attacks, reinforcing shields and redirecting energy to critical points. The combined efforts forced the enemy ship to retreat, buying crucial time for Zilla's citizens. The skies, once filled with the threat of annihilation, now held a glimmer of hope. The aliens, who had faced the brink of destruction, began to realize that survival was possible, though still uncertain that the battle continued for hours, each moment fraught with danger. Zilla's citizens displayed courage, ingenuity, and determination, traits that had always defined their civilization. The Deathworlders, while powerful and relentless, were now challenged in ways they had not anticipated. And above it all, the mysterious force, powerful and enigmatic, demonstrated that the universe still held allies beyond imagination. In this critical moment, Zilla faced its greatest trial, not just a test of technology or strategy, but a test of resilience, unity, and the ability to adapt under unimaginable pressure. Zilla had survived the first major wave of the assault. Parts of the planet were damaged, and the aliens had experienced fear and loss, yet they had endured. The realization that their survival depended on forces beyond themselves began to settle in. The Deathworlders were not defeated, and the battle was far from over. But Zilla had witnessed something extraordinary: the intervention of a force capable of challenging the most feared redditors in the galaxy. This experience would shape the aliens' understanding of the universe, teaching them that survival often requires intelligence, cooperation, and sometimes the arrival of unexpected allies at the moment when hope seems lost. The battle that had raged over Zilla reached its turning point as the mysterious force continued to fight the Deathworlders with a skill and determination that astonished even the aliens. For hours, the skies had been a chaotic battlefield of energy beams, explosive collisions, and the terrifying hum of alien technology. Zilla itself had been battered, parts of the glowing forests were scorched, cities had suffered damage, and the once pristine crystal towers were cracked or partially destroyed. Yet, amid the devastation, hope had begun to emerge. The aliens realized that survival was not just a matter of luck, it was the result of careful coordination, intelligence, and the timely arrival of allies whose power far exceeded anything they had anticipated. The Death, initially confident in their superiority, were increasingly frustrated. Their coordinated attacks, which had previously overwhelmed Zilla's defenses, now met resistance that seemed to anticipate their every move. Ships that had once advanced with precision now faltered under targeted strikes. Large strike vessels were destroyed or disabled, forcing the invaders to retreat from critical zones. This change in momentum was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but as minutes turned into hours, it became undeniable. The balance of the battle was shifting. The aliens watched in awe as their mysterious protectors executed complex maneuvers that combined strength, strategy, and technology far beyond Zilla's comprehension. The aliens themselves played a critical role in this final phase of the battle. While the protectors engaged the Deathworlders directly, Zilla's citizens worked tirelessly to maintain the planet's infrastructure, protect vulnerable populations, and repair damaged defenses. Engineers rerouted energy flows to reinforce critical shield sectors. Scientists recalibrated defensive drones, and volunteers evacuated civilians from high-risk areas. Even artists, scholars, and ordinary citizens contributed, preserving cultural artifacts and aiding in logistical support. Every action, no matter how small, had a cumulative effect. Zilla's society had been tested like never before, and the aliens proved that their strength lay not only in advanced technology but also in unity, intelligence, and resilience. The turning point of the battle came when the protectors targeted the Deathworlders' command vessel, a massive ship that coordinated the entire invasion. This vessel had been the key to the enemy's effectiveness, directing strikes, managing resources, and maintaining communication between smaller attack units. With it disabled, the Deathworlders lost coordination, and their attacks became disorganized and less effective. The aliens, sensing the opportunity, focused their remaining defensive systems on protecting critical areas and assisting in the counterattack. The skies above Zilla, once dominated by fear, began to reflect a cautious optimism as the Deathworlders faltered. The Protectors took decisive action. They pushed the invaders further from the planet, neutralizing the largest threat while ensuring that civilians in key installations remained safe. Their methods were precise and calculated, demonstrating not only raw power but also an understanding of Zilla's vulnerabilities. The aliens were able to observe, for the first time, the full extent of these mysterious beings' capabilities. They were formidable warriors, but they were not mindless destroyers. Their goal seemed not to conquer but to eliminate threats that endangered civilizations, incapable of defending themselves fully. Zilla's aliens realized that their survival was a combination of their own efforts and the intervention of a force that operated on a scale far beyond their understanding. Once the immediate threat had been neutralized, the aliens began to assess the damage and start the process of recovery. The crystal towers, while cracked, could be repaired. The glowing forests, though scarred, could regenerate with careful attention. The oceans had been disturbed by defensive measures and minor combat, but their ecosystems were resilient and began to stabilize. Even in areas where destruction was most severe, the aliens discovered that their knowledge and advanced technology allowed them to rebuild faster than would have been possible in less developed civilizations. The disaster had tested their ingenuity, but it also revealed their capacity for resilience and adaptation. In the aftermath of the battle, communication between Zilla's leaders and the Protectors became possible. The aliens, cautious yet curious, reached out to understand who these beings were and why they had intervened. The Protectors communicated through energy pulses and holographic messages, revealing that their mission was to maintain balance in the galaxy. They intervened selectively, only in situations where a species faced existential threats from predators like the Death. Their actions were guided by a principle of protection rather than domination, a concept that fascinated the aliens. Zilla's leaders realized that while they had survived through preparation and unity, the Protectors' timely intervention had been the ultimate deciding factor in their survival. The aliens also began to understand the limitations of their previous philosophy. They had always believed that knowledge, intelligence, and diplomacy could solve most problems. This belief had served them well in peaceful times, but it had left them vulnerable when faced with a predator that ignored reason. The arrival of the Protectors taught them that while wisdom and intelligence are invaluable, sometimes survival depends on forces beyond one's own control. This realization did not diminish their values. Rather, it expanded them. They understood that strength, resilience, and alliances, expected or unexpected, were crucial in the vast and unpredictable galaxy. While the Protectors prepared to leave Zilla, they provided guidance on emergency protocols, defensive strategies, and early warning systems. The aliens absorbed this information eagerly, knowing that while the immediate danger had passed, the Deathworlders were still active in the galaxy, and other threats might arise in the future. The Protectors' presence left a lasting impact on Zilla, not just in terms of technology or strategy, but in the way the aliens viewed their place in the cosmos. They were no longer isolated, not entirely. They were part of a larger network of life, a galaxy where both danger and protection existed beyond the limits of their understanding. As Zilla's citizens emerged from shelters and assessed the immediate damage, a sense of collective relief and gratitude filled the planet. Families reunited, artists returned to their work, and scientists resumed experiments, now infused with new knowledge and perspective. The alien society, while shaken, had survived. They had faced annihilation and witnessed both the power of their enemies and the intervention of extraordinary allies. This experience reshaped their culture, reminding them that intelligence, preparation, and unity are vital. But sometimes survival also requires humility and the acceptance that some forces in the universe operate on a scale beyond one's own control. The final phase of the battle also offered the aliens an unexpected opportunity to reflect on their values and priorities. They recognized that their civilization had always prized knowledge, art, and peace, and that these qualities were essential to their identity. Yet they also learned that vigilance, adaptability, and cooperation, sometimes with beings they barely understood, were equally important. The near destruction of Zilla underscored the fragility of even the most advanced societies, and the victory, assisted by the Protectors, reinforced the lesson that survival often involves both effort and fortune. Zilla had not only survived but had gained a new understanding of the universe. The battle had been devastating, yet it had strengthened the society in ways that peace never could. Citizens, leaders, and scholars alike carried with them the memory of the invasion, the terror of imminent annihilation, and the relief of the timely intervention. These experiences would inform their future, guiding decisions in governance, technology, and interstellar diplomacy. The aliens realized that the galaxy was a place of both beauty and danger, and that their survival depended on maintaining balance, intelligence, and the readiness to adapt to unforeseen challenges. The Deathworlders had been repelled, their immediate threat neutralized, and the aliens had survived through a combination of preparation, resilience, and the assistance of extraordinary protectors. Yet the lessons learned extended far beyond the mechanics of battle. Zilla had been tested in every way morally, culturally, and strategically. The experience reminded them that no civilization, however advanced, is invulnerable. It also revealed that alliances, even unexpected ones, can be the difference between survival and destruction. As the skies cleared and the protectors departed, Zilla entered a period of recovery and reflection. Citizens repaired homes, rebuilt infrastructure, and restored damaged ecosystems. Scholars documented every detail of the invasion and the response, creating records that would educate future generations. Artists depicted the battle in their works, preserving the memory of the crisis in visual and emotional forms. Children learned stories of resilience, courage, and hope, embedding the lessons of survival deep into the culture. The society that emerged was changed, more aware, more cautious, yet also more confident in its ability to endure. Zilla survived not only because of its own efforts but because the universe contained forces willing to intervene for the sake of balance. The alien civilization realized that their understanding of the galaxy had expanded, that threats were real, and that allies could appear in unexpected forms. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The resolution of the battle was not just the defeat of the Deathworlders. It was the affirmation that even the most peaceful and isolated civilizations could endure, adapt, and thrive when courage, intelligence, and timely assistance converged. The aftermath of the battle left Zilla forever changed. The skies that had once been calm and filled with the soft glow of twin suns now carried the faint scars of conflict. Though the Deathworlders had been repelled and the immediate danger had passed, the alien civilization faced the enormous task of rebuilding not just physically, but emotionally and culturally. The scars on the crystal towers, the scorched patches of bioluminescent forests, and the disturbed oceans were constant reminders of the fragility of their existence. Yet, amid the destruction, the aliens found a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to recover, strengthen, and prepare for whatever the galaxy might bring next. The first priority was the survival and safety of the population. Families who had been separated during the evacuation and emergency protocols reunited, and communities worked together to restore normalcy. Shelters and temporary structures were dismantled, and energy grids were repaired to bring life back to every corner of the planet. Volunteers moved through cities and forests, assisting in cleanup efforts, repairing damaged infrastructure, and ensuring that those most affected received care and support. Even though the aliens had advanced technology that allowed for rapid reconstruction, the emotional healing of the population required patience, empathy, and unity. This process, while laborious, strengthened bonds among citizens and reminded them of the value of cooperation. At the same time, Zilla's leaders took the time to study the battle in detail. The council analyzed every moment, every decision, and every outcome to understand how the Deathworlders had operated, how the protectors had intervened, and what lessons could be applied to future threats. They realized that their civilization had survived not purely because of technology or planning, but because of adaptability, intelligence, and the timely appearance of the mysterious protectors. These insights led to a renewed focus on research, not only in technology and defense but also in interstellar diplomacy and the study of unknown species. Zilla's citizens began to appreciate the importance of vigilance, understanding that even a peaceful world could not rely solely on isolation or goodwill to remain safe. The arrival of the protectors left a lasting impression on the aliens. They were unlike any beings Zilla had encountered before, powerful, precise, and purposeful. Though they had not stayed long, their impact on the civilization was profound. The aliens reflected on the protectors' approach, realizing that the universe was larger and more complex than they had ever imagined. There were forces operating on scales beyond comprehension. And while the Deathworlders represented danger, the protectors demonstrated that help could come in unexpected forms. Zilla began to view itself not as an isolated paradise but as part of a larger galaxy filled with both threats and allies. In the weeks following the battle, Zilla's society began to rebuild physically, culturally, and emotionally. Crystal towers were repaired or reconstructed, blending ancient design with improvements inspired by lessons learned from the battle. Damaged forests were replanted, with particular attention to restoring their unique energy flows and the symbiotic relationship they shared with the alien population. The oceans, disturbed by defensive measures and skirmishes, were carefully monitored to ensure that ecosystems stabilized and aquatic life returned to balance. The process of recovery was not merely restoration, it was transformation. Zilla emerged from the crisis stronger, more resilient, and more aware of its vulnerabilities and strengths. Education and storytelling became central to the civilization's recovery. Scholars and teachers documented the invasion in great detail, recording not only the movements of the Deathworlders and the intervention of the protectors, but also the reactions, decisions, and heroism of Zilla's citizens. Children were taught about courage, resilience, and the importance of cooperation, learning from both the mistakes and successes of their elders. Storytellers and artists captured the events in songs, visual works, and holographic simulations, ensuring that the memory of survival and the lessons learned would be preserved for generations. The battle became a cornerstone of Zilla's culture, a reminder of both the fragility and the strength of life. Cultural reflections deepened as the aliens considered what the battle had revealed about their values. They had always believed that knowledge, diplomacy, and peace were sufficient for survival. Yet the crisis had demonstrated the limits of these ideals when faced with an aggressive, uncompromising force. The Deathworlders ignored reason, strategy, and negotiation, leaving the aliens to rely on resilience and external assistance. While the Protectors had intervened in time, Zilla's leaders understood that future threats might not always allow such fortunate timing. This realization led to a philosophical shift. The aliens began to place equal emphasis on preparedness, strategy, and adaptability alongside their traditional values of knowledge, art, and harmony. The recovery process also highlighted the alien society's remarkable resilience. Citizens who had faced fear, displacement, and the threat of annihilation now worked with renewed vigor to restore and improve their world. Scientists developed advanced defensive systems that could detect threats earlier and respond faster. Engineers built stronger structures that could withstand energy strikes and environmental damage. Communities strengthened emergency protocols and coordinated disaster response plans. Even the youngest citizens learned the importance of awareness, teamwork, and vigilance. The experience had created a generation that was not only capable, but also confident in the ability to endure challenges. Zilla's leaders also took steps to ensure that the lessons of the invasion would influence long-term policy and interstellar relations. They began to explore communication with other civilizations in neighboring star systems, cautiously seeking alliances and cooperative agreements, while they retained a healthy skepticism toward unknown species. They recognized that connection and collaboration could be vital in a galaxy where threats could arise at any time. The arrival of the Protectors had demonstrated that survival sometimes depends on forces beyond one's own abilities, and Zilla's leaders sought to build a network of knowledge and relationships that could provide additional security in the future. Emotionally, the aftermath of the battle left a profound impact on Zilla's citizens. Those who had faced direct danger experienced a renewed appreciation for life and community. Families who had been separated learned the value of unity and communication. Communities bonded over shared experiences of fear, resilience, and courage. The alien population, once accustomed to a calm and predictable life, now understood the fragility of existence and the importance of preparedness. This collective experience fostered a deeper sense of empathy, cooperation, and responsibility, ensuring that the lessons of the battle were not forgotten. As the planet slowly healed, Zilla's people also reflected on the nature of the universe. They had learned that danger could appear suddenly, without warning, and that survival often depends on forces outside one's control. Yet they also recognized that courage, intelligence, and cooperation were crucial in navigating such uncertainty. The Protectors' timely intervention had shown that the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and filled with beings whose power and purpose could be both terrifying and protective. Zilla's citizens carried this dual awareness forward, understanding that vigilance, humility, and adaptability were as important as knowledge and art in a world that was part of a much larger cosmic system. Zillar emerged from the crisis stronger and wiser. The planet had been tested in every possible way. Physically, emotionally, culturally, and philosophically. Citizens had faced destruction and fear, yet had survived through unity, ingenuity, and the intervention of allies they could scarcely comprehend. The experience transformed Zilla, reshaping its society, values, and outlook on the galaxy. What had begun as a peaceful, isolated civilization had evolved into a resilient and aware society, prepared to face the unknown while preserving its culture, knowledge, and harmony. The story of Zilla's survival became a cornerstone of its identity. It was taught to every generation, celebrated in art, memorialized in archives, and remembered in personal narratives. The aliens understood that their paradise was fragile, yet resilient, and that their survival depended on more than just technology. It required courage, wisdom, and the willingness to adapt in the face of unimaginable threats. The memory of the Deathworlders, the intervention of the Protectors, and the unity of the Zilla civilization became lessons that would guide them for millennia. Above all, Zilla learned that hope and action could coexist even in the darkest moments. While the battle had brought fear, loss, and destruction, it also revealed the strength of their society, the importance of alliances, and the power of resilience. Citizens carried forward not only the memory of danger but also the memory of courage, unity, and survival. The planets, forests, oceans, and crystal towers became symbols of endurance, reflecting the journey of a civilization that had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the mysteries and dangers of the galaxy. Zilla had transformed from a peaceful, isolated world into a society deeply aware of its place in the cosmos. The alien civilization had learned that the universe was full of danger and wonder, threats and allies, and that survival required more than intelligence alone. It demanded resilience, cooperation, and adaptability. Zilu's story became one of inspiration, a tale of courage, hope, and the enduring spirit of life in the face of overwhelming odds.